Hello, everyone. This is Sherry Greenhouse, Managing Partner of CRM Exchange, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Technology Showcase, where we're going to discuss insights that drive customer satisfaction presented by Evolve IP. So now I am going to introduce your presenter, Rich Fox, Vice President, Contact Center Solutions for Evolve IP. Rich's extensive background includes 25 years of operations and technology roles that span product management, application development, contact center leadership, technology infrastructure, and voice communications. And there's Rich's happy face, and he is going to present to you right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you all for joining us today. We're going to start out talking about the dashboard. So the real-time dashboard is a favorite of a lot of our call center managers and above who want real-time visibility of the call center from anywhere on any device. This is often used by other leaders who have a vested interest in the call center's performance, but not directly involved in managing the call center necessarily. This allows call centers to have their fingers on the pulse from wherever they are, at home, on the road, or just checking in while running between meetings. The Queue View, which you're looking at here, is designed to answer two questions. How is my call center performing today, and what is happening now? This web-based application provides the call center performance, things like call volume, service level, abandoned calls, average speed of answer for the current day for individual queues and overall across all queues. This application also provides real-time status of every queue and every agent. Each dashboard user can establish thresholds when they want to be notified that things aren't going well, such as too many calls in queue, dropping service levels, or long hold times. This application is optimized for mobile devices in today's world, so smartphones and tablets work great, so everyone can always have the most up-to-date status. This application also has another view called the wallboard view that's commonly projected up on large screens so that all staff have real-time view of what's happening in the call center. Each data element on the screen or widget is completely customizable so you can present the key information in the style that best suits your organization. This empowers the contact center with the information needed to make smart decisions throughout the day. So for each one of these products, we'll talk a little bit about a particular customer example. In this case study, this customer is a market leader in the home healthcare industry, and they rely heavily on their call centers to connect with patients and physicians, creating in many cases a literal lifeline. They selected Evolve IP's cloud solution after a hurricane crippled dozens of their locations, and they could not provide critical supplies to their patients. So oxygen being a big one that this company provides, so they need to be able to, their patients be able to get their oxygen. They replaced all their individual phone systems at all 400 locations with our PBX and our call center platform. They centralized their call center operations into a single national presence, resulting in improved service levels to patients and cost savings that amount to millions of dollars per year, about $10 million. Prior to Evolve IP, they had no way to review real-time results from agents serving calls around the country. Their 700 supervisors, managers, directors have their fingers, on the pulse of the contact center from anywhere with a browser and an internet connection. Our dashboard was a significant game changer for their leadership team that allowed them to increase their service levels and dramatically reduce their technology and labor costs. Prior to our implementation, there was no way for anybody in the organization to have a global view across the organization. Now each of those 700 leaders has the exact view they need to manage their teams in real time. Building on top of that visibility, they recently implemented a massive work-from-home initiative so they could close many offices for additional cost savings. Today, they have hundreds of agents working from home, operating with no loss of functionality and with complete leadership visibility as well. This allowed them to remain competitive in this very fierce market that for them has been battered by the managed healthcare system. This customer's landscape has dramatically changed through the implementation of new technologies like our dashboard that have empowered them to revamp their entire business, become more nimble, and save tons of money along the way. So I'll give you a sample of what that's like. So the call center dashboard, when you first open it, starts you out in a queue view that you see here that I mentioned. Every row is a queue, and this customer has dozens of queues. And what you get inside this first box is that first question I mentioned, which is what's happened so far today. And I can see those results queue by queue. So in this particular queue, there's been 79 calls received, 3 of them abandoned. My speed of answer is a minute. But I can see in totality across the top of it how I'm doing across all the queues that I'm looking at here. To the right, I get what's happening now, how many calls are in queue, how many people are on the phone, how many people are idle, what's my resulting service level been so far today, things along those lines. And so I can really quickly and easily, drill down and see what's going on. So right now I have no calls in queue, which is a good thing. But I can drill in to see what's happening in these queues. So this little orange triangle here allows me to get some more details. So if I click on here, I get a real-time view of everybody in this queue and what they're up to. So I get everything from who's available to take phone calls to who's unavailable. I can see that Asia here's at lunch. I can see Maria's on a phone call and Deandra's on a phone call. Different phone calls, you may not be able to see it so well on your screen, but the different handsets denote different types of calls. So Deandra here is on a call for this queue, whereas Maria has a yellow phone, which means she's on a call for a different queue. So you can really see not only are people on the phone calls, but are they on the calls for the queue that I'm drilling into at this point. Of course, I get all the real-time information, who they're speaking to, how long they've been on the phone for. So in this case, Maria's on this call for 3 minutes. She's talking to this 219 phone number. And I can really get all the gory details really quickly and easily through here. To the right, I get what's happened so far today in this queue. So how many calls each person has received and how many they've answered. What their talk time has been in each queue. So Maria is a lot chattier than Asia, clearly. And to the right, I get what's happened so far today outside of the queue. How many calls came in directly to each person and that they answered? How many calls did they place outside the organization and they connected with the other party? So this application really gives our customers a quick and easy view to always know exactly what's going on from anywhere, really. That's the queue view that I mentioned. We have a couple other views up here as well. So the agent view takes every row, and instead of being a queue, is now a person. So it's going to take a second to load. And now every person here in the organization is visible. And I can see, again, for each person, how many calls they receive and answer, what's their talk time been, what they've done outside the queues. I can drill in and see which queues they've actually been participating in and how many calls they've received across each queue. Some customers like to use this to do things like that. Let me sort of take a look at everybody in the organization and what they're up to right now. So I just clicked on the agent state to sort by that field. And now I can see all these people in the dark colors are not here, but then you can see all the people that are here, green being an available state, red being an unavailable state. I can see who's on a phone call. I can see that Lori here is on a non-ACB phone call. She took an inbound call from somebody outside the organization. I can see that someone's phone was just ringing there a second ago, and I can see who's unavailable. So this is more of an interactive view. Both these two views are interactive views for me to get information that I'm looking for. But the last view inside here is the wallboard view. And this is the one that most customers like to present internally, up on the screen. And what I get here is a bunch of these resizable widgets here, as you can see. Let me zoom this out a little bit, a little big. So each one of these data points is a resizable widget, and I can they come out of the box, so to speak, looking like this Agents on Calls widget. They just come out, starting out just white and kind of, bland. And each one of these is sort of infinitely customizable. So I've assigned these colors and these fonts and those things, so you can blame me if you don't like the color scheme. But what I get really is that all the relevant information that somebody needs at their fingertips. So my service level so far today is 81%. I've got 3 calls in queue for up to 9 seconds. I got 19 agents sitting idle waiting for the phone to ring. I got 17 agents on calls. As you can see, this is a real-time view updating. And every one of these widgets, not only is it customizable, but in the lower left-hand corner here, you can sort of take from the summary view you're looking at here down into the details. So if I want to see what's been my resulting service level across all those queues, I can just hit that little button, flip from that summary view to the detail view, and get my sort of scrolling list and all the scrolling behaviors and other configurable items. Same thing on any of these elements. If I want to see who's actually on the call and how long they've been on the phone, those kinds of things, I can do the same thing on any of these widgets. So it allows me to, provide the information that each person, or really anybody who's viewing this, needs in the format they need. And as I mentioned, when you come up in here, you have the ability to not only name these filters, name the widgets, decide which types of calls you want to see. Maybe I don't care about if they're on an internal call. Maybe I do. What filters we should have inside each of these widgets. This is specifically the Agents on Calls widgets. What's the scrolling behavior? Should I automatically scroll? How fast should it go? Things like that. And then, of course, all the colors and fonts and those kinds of things that I mentioned earlier. So this application really is one of the more popular ones for us, and allows our customers really to have a great global view from anywhere with the browser. And that's our call center dashboard. So shifting gears, let's talk about business intelligence. So for those customers that have sophisticated reporting and analytical needs, we have a product we call Analyst. This allows the customers to extend those existing reports that we already have out of the box with custom fields or calculations that their customer that they need for the organization. Through this tool, a power user can build new reports, combine existing reports, integrate data from other internal systems for a more complete perspective. Customers do things like revenue per call or cost per call or call to sale conversion rates, things along those lines. And this is our solution for addressing a large concern that we hear from our customers and prospective customers. We recently completed a call center survey, and 60% of the participants felt that inadequate reporting or analytics was a challenge for their organization. And this is how we address those challenges. We've pre-built dozens of dashlets that meet the customer's everyday needs. In this tool, every little box that you're going to see is considered a dashlet. Our customers can start out with these views and customize them, or start with a blank canvas and build any view that's desired. Customers can easily build visualizations of their data, generate trend analysis. And I'm going to show this to you. So again, a quick case study for you. In this case, this is a customer's a rapidly growing dental support organization that's been acquiring dentists and orthodontist offices and created a large network of over 75 offices operating under different brand names. Right now, there are 4 or 5 brand names. Their headquarters corporate staff provides dentists with what's typical services such as billing and scheduling and technology infrastructure. This allows the dentist to maximize their practice and focus on patient, while the corporate teams, handle much of the back office needs that many of the doctors typically dread. So our customer has implemented dozens of simultaneous marketing digital marketing campaigns, both digital and traditional, to generate new patients. So this call center's mission is to turn those inbound interactions into appointments with a local dentist. So measuring the effectiveness of those campaigns is of utmost importance, from the initial call through to scheduling an appointment, and most importantly, determining if the patient actually showed up for that appointment and actually generated revenue. So by measuring the success all the way through to revenue generation, our customer can truly determine the effectiveness and ROI of every campaign. For instance, this customer learned that the number of customers that don't show up for their scheduled appointments, what they call a no-show, dramatically increased in certain markets if they couldn't schedule that patient to see a dentist within 2 days of their call. So they had some campaigns they thought were really effective. They were generating lots of calls, and they were generating lots of appointments, but not lots of revenue because they were scheduling appointments too many days away for those patients who needed treatment sooner. So this customer has built dashboards that allow them to have that immediate access to those trends they're looking for on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Their executive team now has an accurate metrics like sales conversion rates, which for them means that the percent of calls that turn into appointments, and they have that by campaign, they have it by agent, they have it by territory, and the contact center supervisors, have views that give them the KPIs they need to manage their day-to-day, agent level compliance metrics, which dental offices are actually avoiding phone calls is something that they can now see as well. And these are all new insights for this business. So let me give you a flavor of this product. second. Here we go. So when you first log in, we start out in what we call the Cockpit View. Each one of these boxes is that dashlet that I described earlier. On the left-hand side, we have sort of the high-level insights of, what kind of how many calls am I currently looking at, what's my resulting service level and answer rate, what's my handle time, things along those lines. And at the top, you'll see it, by default, I have a 30-second service level goal, and I'm looking at 4 weeks worth of data. And what I get inside each of these dashlets is a lot of functionality. So if I can zoom into one of these dashlets like this one here, this one shows me my resulting service levels by call type, and allows me to drill down from here. I also have some controls inside each dashlet up here. So I can do things like change my data around. If I don't like how it looks, I can flip it around. I can change how it looks, if I want to see the raw data, things like that. I have the ability to schedule this. I have the ability to export it out, those kinds of things as well. If I go back to my original view here that I happen to like, let's say I'm concerned about some of these queues down here in the 60s with their service levels. I can just lasso these queues, which applies another filter for those queues. I can manually apply filters up here, which I'll show you in a moment. So now when I minimize that back down, you'll now see that all my data has been refreshed based upon that selection I made. Some other dashes inside here are things like how many calls were queued by day of week and the resulting service level. So it turns out that Tuesdays are my big days where my volume is much higher, and I'm been running in this time period a 57% service level towards my 30-second goal specified up here. So bottom one here sort of gives week-over-week trends. Volume goes down, my service level goes up, my average speed of answer goes down, as you would expect. So this is sort of what we call the cockpit that gives our customers sort of the high-level look to figure out where they want to go from here. So in this case, I want to drill down into these queues, I can do that. I also have the ability to apply filters up here. So if I want to go back in time and pick a particular date range, I can do that. If I want to filter this down just to particular queues, I can do that. Days of the week, sort of all the key kinds of things you'd expect to see, just point-and-click access. But now that I've sort of picked what I'm interested in, the last month's worth of data for these couple queues, I can now drill down. So if I go down to my next level, my summary view, what I get across the top now is the same set of columns we saw initially, but now I'm down into my the next level of detail, peeling the layers of the onion back, so to speak. How many calls came in, how many got answered, what's been my service level, my wait time, talk time, hold time, those kinds of things. So I can start drilling down into the data and better understanding what it is that's happening inside my contact center. I mentioned views. There's different views pre-built in here. Our customers, I mentioned, also can start with a blank canvas. So if I go back to the cockpit for a second here, let's say I want to add some additional data to this calls queue by day of the week. One of the options here says Explore and Visualizer. And when I go inside here, what it allows me to do is it gives me drag and drop access to all the data elements in the system. So this is really the design tool that we use to build things for our customers, but customers have access to the same thing. So inside here, everything is either considered an attribute, something I want to report against, a call center name, a person, a particular phone line coming in, things like that. And the things that you actually report on are called measures. So if I want to come down and I want to add some more two-level measures to this, like calls abandoned or any kinds of metrics that are here, I simply can just drag and drop, any of these data elements into the appropriate place. The system is kind of, wizardy, drag and droppy to make things easier for you, for our customers. I can categorize them. I can apply this as another filter, whatever it is that I want to do to quickly and easily modify this view to see the data that I want to see. Similarly, when I'm actually inside these views, so if I go back here for 1 second. When I go down into, I'll go down into an agent activity view, so obviously an important part of any call center is where people are spending their time. So this allows me to drill down into this. So I'm looking at, again, a month's worth of data here to see where people are spending their time. So I get a pie chart up here. This is one that I like. Well, of course I have some available time, but maybe I don't want the available time in this pie chart. And you can see down here I have a legend. So I can just click on anything. I turn off the available piece, and now I can see really the information that I want to see. Where's my next biggest chunk of time is this unavailable code here, and this one is lunch. So 25% of my time is spent, or my staff's time in the last month has been spent in a lunch state. I get some other metrics around here. Now I'm looking at it by day of the week. So again, lunch obviously is a big chunk of each day. I can see here how much time people are spending over the course of, overall for the day, and then even individually, I can look at a view here and see each person and see where they're spending their time. So this tool really was designed to be very interactive, to draw people's eyes to the data that is important to them. And as I mentioned, it's out of the box looks like this, and then customers can do whatever they need to do to give the data that they want to see. So at this point, we wanted to throw a polling question out there for everybody. So you're going to see a poll show up on your screen in a moment. And there you go. So I'll keep talking while you guys take a look at your poll. I'm going to, here's my choice here and move on. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the cloud IVR. So, IVR is a term that means a lot of things to a lot of people. It's been around for decades. And from our perspective, the IVR is essentially an advanced toolkit that allows us to build any call flow our customers can imagine. The advanced capabilities, these capabilities enable call centers to deploy a wide range of self-service, data-driven routing, and outbound dialing features that can free up agents to focus on more complex requests and customers requiring a higher touch. So some of the common applications that we see in here are things like account lookup to authenticate callers and integrate real-time with our customers' business applications, to understand the caller's status, provide relevant information to them such as account balance, their last payment made, or the transaction status. Taking that a step further, various self-service functions can be performed, such as requesting documentation, closing a ticket, making a payment over the phone. Other applications include things like post-call surveys. So in either an inbound or an outbound call survey to understand caller satisfaction. Another common one is what I call data-driven routing. Delivering prioritized calls to the proper destination based upon the caller's transaction status or their account value. So, for instance, VIP customers might jump to the top of the queue or to a dedicated queue of seasoned agents, while the regular customer just might enter the back of the queue like normal. Custom Screen Pop allows us to provide rich integration into sort of any business application, including the caller's intent, what steps they took in the IVR, and opening up the appropriate screen with that caller's information to streamline and enrich the agent's interaction. Some of the key features inside here are the typical IVR functions such as speech recognition, robust reporting to understand the caller's experience and the success of the voice automation, easily integrating with any database or other CRM system. Some customers like to upload data for account lookups, while others engage real-time integration from the IVR by web enabling their business applications. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an example of what I mean by this kind of data-driven routing. So, little chart here. Pull that off to the side. So a little chart here to give you a sense. So we have a Evolve IP and our IVR on the left in orange, and then we have the customer on the right here in blue. And so what I would give an example of, this is sort of a typical call flow, very common in financial services for us. So caller comes in to our call center. Right out of the gate, we try and match their phone number against the customer's CRM or business application to see if we can find out who they are. In this case, let's assume we didn't match, so now we prompt the caller for their account number. Now, fortunately, we now have a match. We know who the customer is. And that sort of unlocks the keys of the kingdom for us, because now we can decide how we're going to route that caller. So, for instance, in this scenario, the customer designates each of their accounts in various values, so platinum, gold, regular, for instance. So in this case, if this caller had a platinum value to the customer, they might go to the VIP queue. Maybe they're in a gold status, they sort of jump ahead of all the other regular customer, and the regular customer just goes back into the normal customer service or sales queue, for instance. The other fun thing is if maybe their customer's transaction is late. Maybe they're late on their payments, in which case we can send them right to the appropriate team, despite what they were calling about. We want to speak to them maybe about their payment, so we can send them right off. And then from an agent's perspective, what we get is a screen pop that opens up on their system the appropriate customer and the appropriate screen, so the agent is best prepared to handle that interaction. Give you a case study in this scenario. So in this case, this customer is a household name that provides printers and copiers and all kinds of multi-function devices for businesses of all sizes. Their contact center is essentially a high-end technical support team that supports field technicians. The technicians are on site at a customer and are struggling to repair a machine, so they contact this contact center team to help them resolve that issue. The contact center is staffed by highly trained team members. They can recreate any customer environment right there while on the phone with the technician. The contact center has a huge lab of computers, and every supported device this manufacturer has that this technician might be calling about. The technicians to this customer is really their customer, not the end consumers who bought the machine. So the technician really is a third-party reseller. So our customer wants to deliver great service to the technician, who is actually their customer. So given the technical interaction, the technical nature of these calls, they can be very long, as you can imagine, especially if they've got to go recreate the scenario. And our customer is looking for ways to shorten their calls via voice automation. This automation wasn't really designed to solve any technical issues. Instead, it was intended to free up the agent from having to capture the nature of the call, and more importantly, who is the technician and what specific device or machine are they calling about. And through the phone system, the technician now identifies themselves and the exact machine that's broken. And this serves a few purposes. One, all the transactions now get linked to each technician. This is valuable to our customer because some of those technicians are considered elite technicians, and they get preferential treatment in the queues. So effectively, just by calling and identifying themselves, they get answered faster ahead of non-elite technicians. Secondly, the benefit is the agent can now confirm the device is actually supported and access the history of that particular machine. And third, the amount of time it took at the beginning of the call to capture all that information has been eliminated for our customer. So this allowed them to provide even better service to their technicians, allowed the agents to work seamlessly from within their normal business application, which is a field service system. Now when the agent receives that call, the system automatically opens up the correct screen in that business application based upon the ticket the caller entered, or the technician ID, or the machine tag identified by the caller. And so we've dramatically reduced that time. And technicians can now close out a customer issue or ticket right through the phone system without having to actually wait and hold to reach an agent. So this customer has applied some simple voice automation that has allowed them to deliver better service while freeing up their agent's time. I just was going to give you a real quick look here. So from I described the IVR as sort of a toolkit. So the toolkit is an interactive visual design tool that looks like this. And so I'm sort of give you an example of what this customer's flow looks like. The technician says they want a new ticket. We grab their technician ID. If we don't get one, then we log we can get one. Otherwise, we now go out to the customer's database, confirm that technician to identify who they are. Then we do a lookup to make sure that see if that's an elite technician or not. And then once we know if it's going to be a technician or not, we're going to log the appropriate data so then we can track later on every interaction, and then more importantly in totality, how well we're doing, for how successful is the voice automation. So how many are authenticating, how many technician IDs are we getting versus machine tags versus tickets, how many people are failing at certain points, things like that. And then we pass that information off, down to the appropriate queue, and that way we get that data down to the agent as well of who's calling and what the nature of their call. So just to give you a sense, this is all sort of a point and click kind of thing, and every interaction in here is considered a node. So I won't get into all the gory details, but there's all the different types of nodes someone might add to a call flow. So things like what's the time of day, or distribute calls down a certain path, play messages, prompts, access local data, integrate with third-party data, those kinds of things. So really, why I call it a toolkit is it's a collection of nodes that we then build to deliver, or the customer can use to build and deliver any call flow imaginable. So our last topic for today was Queue Callback. So Queue Callback is a queue management feature that enables organizations to optimize the customer experience by offering callers the ability to request a callback based upon predetermined call center conditions, rather than having to wait in queue for an agent becoming available. So the caller is offered a callback if the call center is experiencing delays, typically based upon expected wait time, or oldest call waiting, or number of calls in queue. If the caller accepts that offer, we confirm the phone number we should use for the callback, and they hang up. At that point, we place a call into the queue on the customer's behalf, and once that call reaches an agent, we simultaneously place a call to the customer and connect the two parties together. That way, it's a normal inbound call to the agent who's notified they're receiving a callback call, and the customer receives an outbound call with a live agent on the line. The benefits of this service that our customers see are improved customer satisfaction by being considerate of the caller's time, by giving the ability to opt in instead of waiting on hold, which feels like forever to everybody. Reducing the number of callers that abandon prior to speaking with an agent. Reducing inbound toll charges, since callers are no longer waiting in queue, eating up precious toll-free minutes per se. On our platform also, even the outbound call is free to our customers. It doesn't incur any kind of usage or toll-free costs. And the biggest benefit is you're handling spikes in call volume by using technology instead of adding more agents. Every call center has spiky business. This allows us to smooth it out, or not necessarily smooth it out, but get the calls answered, but not by adding more staff. And the other really nice benefit for our customers is reducing handle time for the callers that actually utilize Queue Callback. What we found is the agent can move more efficiently through that call, since the caller isn't agitated or frustrated from their wait on hold. Let me jump into one more case study for you here. So this customer is a benefits administration service that has thousands of customers, and they receive calls from their customers' employees year-round. But due to the nature of the benefits enrollment process, they experience a huge spike in call volume for the 60 or 90 days each year, and that spike is 2 to 3 times greater than their typical volume the rest of the year. So it's a very short period of time to handle such a large call spike. The customer, as you imagine, has taken many steps to handle the volume, from staggering enrollment periods to training back office staff to help, and then hiring temporary staff when they can. Like many call centers, they even experimented with voicemail and manually placing, return calls to those people that didn't want to wait on hold. And like most call centers that have tried to use voicemail, they learned if you don't have the staff to handle the inbound call volume, then attempting to use the same staff to handle outbound calls, turns out to be a nightmare with worse results and frustrated customers. I'm sure many of you have been there, myself included. So during these couple months of high call volume, the customer traditionally experienced long wait times and higher than they like abandon rates. So, of course, their customers, the actual employer, wants their employees to have a better quality experience, which would strain the relationship each year, during the equivalent of this benefits enrollment period, their version of the Super Bowl, if you will, the playoffs. So their answer to the situation was our Queue Callback product. So this customer has been able to improve their call center's metrics while simultaneously improving the satisfaction of the customer and their customer's customers. So what this customer now has been able to achieve is a 15% drop in their abandon rate. Those callers that opt into Queue Callbacks consistently spend a whole minute less on the phone than those who don't opt into Queue Callback. This is fairly common. They see about 45% of the callers choosing a callback. So for those people that we offer a callback to, about half say, "Yep, I'm game. Sign me up." So that was the extent of my content for today. Let's take a look at how we did on our poll here. So what was number one? Access to advanced. What does that one say? I can't even read it. Access to advanced analytics and business intelligence. Well, that's good. So our analyst product has a good fit there for you. Number two was more customized call flows, advanced routing options. So how an IVR can play in there. And then customer satisfaction surveys those folks combined of 8%, which is another sort of inherent part of what we offer from an IVR perspective. So that was the extent of what I was going to cover today, Sherry. So let me switch it back to you here.
Okay, thank you. And we are going to leave your screen and go to the Q&A. And just as a reminder, in the Q&A section is where you put your questions. And we do have a question that came in about the queues. And how does your queue callback work if the customer doesn't answer their phone when you call them back?
Okay, good one. So yeah, it happens. Someone's busy or they're on the line, things like that. So let me talk a little bit about how that would get handled. So we have a notion of a recall in our system. So a recall is a configurable setting decided by each customer as well. And what that is if we call a customer, when we try and pull them back in to meet with the agent, we ask them to hit a key to pull them to denote that they're there and they're ready. The agent actually can hear that interaction. So let's say we call somebody and it goes to their voicemail. They're obviously not going to hit a key. The agent will actually hear that caller's voicemail as well, and they can decide how each customer decides how they handle those situations. So we can do a recall, in which case the agent can simply hang up their call. It would be an answered call from the call center metrics perspective because the caller went in the queue, got answered by an agent. We didn't actually connect with the customer, but we can do a recall. So a recall says, we're going to place another outbound call to that customer, and we can specify how long to wait between calls. So let's say we're going to call each customer one more time, and we're going to wait 10 minutes. So what happens is at 10 minutes, we place another placeholder call in the queue on behalf of the customer, excuse me. When that call gets through the queue to an agent, we then place a second outbound call to that customer. And let's say we get their voicemail again. We notify the agent that this is their, a recall attempt and which attempt it is, in which case they know how to interact or how to respond. So let's say they only get one recall. This is the one recall. We get the caller's voicemail again. The agent can simply say, "Hey, this is Rich from Evolve IP calling on your Queue Callback. Sorry we missed you. Please give us a call back at the same number again." So it allows each customer to decide how they want. Really, two configurations. Do I want to offer recall? If so, how many times should we attempt to call the customer, and how much time in between? So typically we say, give customers about 10 minutes before we try them again. If we weren't ready, on the first call, give them maybe 10, 15 minutes, and we'll try again. So that's how we handle those situations.
Let's see. On the analyst tool, is there an option where I can take other data from another source? Are there any standard obligations to integrate? So let's talk about some APIs.
Sure. So you may have noticed, I think on the slide, it said when we look at the analyst PowerPoint slide and when I was in the product, you may have noticed that it said powered by Burst. So what we're actually doing here is we are using a product called Burst, B-I-R-S-T, which is a award-winning cloud-based BI business intelligence tool and we're using their tool set. So basically, we're delivering that entire tool set to our customer base. We've pre-built all the views we talked about and have all the when I was in Visualizer doing the drag and drop, that's just native Burst functionality where we make each customer's data available to them. Well, Burst, of course, and in today's world, the ability to integrate data to create a more holistic view is sort of an inherent part of what that product does. So some customers pull in third-party data and marry the data sources up to give that holistic view. Burst has native connectors to many commercial applications out there, say Salesforce or Marketo, things along those lines, so that what you can do is then take that tool that we've already delivered to our customers and bring in and marry up other data sources really from anywhere, and that's really why this product shines. Is we're basically just unleashing a tool set that is very powerful to our customers. We've made it simple to give them access to the data that they want from our platform, but they can leverage and take it really to marry up any data source in there. And yes, there's a huge API.
Is it possible to include the revenue per agent in some of the reporting?
Yeah, I mean, so we have some customers who've done those things, around revenue. So obviously, if you're tracking that, like the cost per call or revenue per call, becomes real easy to bring that data in. Obviously, it's not inside the phone system per se, but through that same mechanism, that's really where I think the more value comes out of the call center is when you can start looking at the more holistic picture of it's not just calls. In my conversation about the dental organization, for them it's about sales conversion rates and the revenue generated by a marketing campaign and who's more effective at which types of customers, so that we can take real data, real insightful data, and make a meaningful impact, to the business, including, things such as revenue.
Okay, this is a good question. Is there any way for me to receive an alert, either by text or email, if my call center isn't performing well?
Yes. So we have, and I think I forgot to mention we were in the dashboard, but some of the cells were turning red. You may have noticed that when I was in the Queue View. I forget whether it did or didn't. You can set up thresholds. Each user can set up thresholds inside our dashboard product to be notified when things aren't going well, and each user defines what that means things aren't going well. So it could be, in a particular queue, I have more my handle time, or I should say, I have less than 3 agents staffed, or I have more than 5 calls in queue, or my longest call is waiting more than 90 seconds. Whatever it is that's important for that queue, for that person, the application can alert them when those thresholds have been met. So they get visual alerts. If they're not in dashboard, the application sort of alerts them. If they're in dashboard, their cells turn red. And then if they're not even looking at the dashboard or anywhere near their computer, they can get emails or text messages to notify them, hey, the number of calls in this queue has exceeded your threshold. They get sort of one alert when things aren't going well, and they can get a second alert that says, hey, stand down, everything's returned back to normal. So they get, a warning and then okay, you can relax kind of notification right from the dashboard.
Okay, good. Let's see. What is the required skill set for somebody to start creating reports from scratch?
So you saw it was a drag and drop tool, but it does require a business analyst-y kind of mindset, a reporting analyst mindset to accomplish them. So there's a nice data dictionary that details out every data element we make available. But you do need to sort of understand things like variables, and people can create expressions to create custom calculations. It's all done via point and click for the most part. So what we find is, usually there's somebody in many customers who sort of does that reporting analyst, report jockey, I sometimes say, mode. And so from scratch, it's literally you just start dragging and dropping like I ran in that visualizer. You grab the data elements that you want. You start with attributes to figure out what you want to report against, and you start driving the measures of those attributes that you want to report against. It's very futuristic. It's very customizable. The other good news is that, by partnering with a very established tool, there's lots of training available. They have their own university as well. We have our own training options as well. So I would say that the short answer to your question, because I know I'm typically long-winded, is your typical advanced reporting analyst, business analyst who has that kind of mindset to, can create reports pretty easily, and I've actually done it myself. So anybody can do it.
Okay. Let's see. Have you been able to reduce abandon rates for your customers?
So the answer is yes. And there's so a few ways I'll answer that question. One, I talked about Queue Callback. Right out of the gate, I didn't say it explicitly, but every caller that opts in for a Queue Callback is not an abandoned caller, because the customer hangs up, the system puts that call in queue, and our system will wait forever to get answered. So it's a one-for-one, direct correlation of if you opt in for Queue Callback, that's not going to be an abandoned call. So that's one answer to the question, yes. A lot of our customers haven't had great reporting data, so they don't necessarily know when their peak periods are. So a lot of customers have been able to use just the out-of-the-box reporting to be able to give them, to better see when their peak intervals are, and that way they can manually shift around breaks and lunches and meetings and trainings to better align staff to when people are calling. For those customers that, use workforce management, of course, there's the whole genre of products and capabilities there to reduce abandons by better, creating an optimal schedule. So for those customers of ours who use workforce management, we've seen good reductions. And then the interesting one, and the one that whoever asked the question probably didn't even think about, and this was a bit of a surprise for me. I've been in the cloud for 5 years now, but prior to that I did a lot of large premise-based call centers, and that's what I worked for and that I managed. And one of the ahas for me in the cloud were there's a lot of customers that don't realize that they don't have enough phone line capacity coming in their front door. So a traditional premise-based phone system, you have to buy, the right amount of phone lines, the right amount of phone capacity to get those callers to come in the front door. And let's say you had, just argument's sake, you had 100 phone lines coming in the front door, 101st caller tries to come in the front door, they can't get in the front door, they just get a busy signal. And maybe they call right back and they get in because somebody hung up. They get that weird, fast, busy kind of message that people sort of get used to, I think. But we've had a lot of customers, and it was sort of a shock to me at first, who they go live on our platform where that whole notion of traditional PRIs or voice channels is not really a factor anymore, and there's unlimited capacity in our cloud for our customers. And all of a sudden, so it's not abandoned, but in effect, it probably was abandoned. We've had customers who didn't realize they had 30%, 40%, 50% more calls coming, trying to get in their front door than they ever was able to get in the front door. And so all of a sudden they go live on our system like, oh my God, it's not working right, there's something wrong, because they're so busy or there's calls queuing longer than they thought, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and it turns out, in all these cases, they just didn't have enough capacity. So those people never got in the front door. They never even registered as an abandoned, and hopefully they called back. But those are sort of the ways that I've seen some great improvements for our customers on the abandoned side.
Okay, good. And let's take one more question. Okay, talking about setting up self-service. So in reality, how difficult is it to set up self-service IVR?
So I showed you a quick look at the IVR scripting tool. That too requires the right mindset. It's not a programmer per se, but it's somebody who can work with local variables and global variables and things like that. So this is where our customers lean on us a bit more. So typically what we do is an iterative process where we sort of flush out the requirements and the logic and the decision and the routing criteria and Visio flows, and to figure out that part of it. And, on the self-service side of things, though, it's a joint effort between us and our customers, because we're going to manage the phone interactions, but if I need to, now take that account number and pass it over to the customer to figure out whether it's platinum, gold, VIP, those kinds of things, our customer's IT staff has to make those kinds of interactions and APIs available to us. So, we handle the phone interactions. The customer handles sort of those enabling functions, like real-time access to business data, authentication, so that we can route calls and speak the right information to the caller, like the last transaction or their account balance and those things. So things like fulfillment functions. So, hey, I want to order a new ID card. We're going to say, hey, we're going to, on the phone side, figure out who the caller is, figure out that they want a new ID card, and then pass that information off to the customer. So it's very much a collaborative project between IT, the call center, and us. For customers that have software developers, that are familiar with their applications and business processes, it's really not, it's just another project to them, and the process is much easier. For those that don't, it's a little bit more work, but it's definitely, a little bit more of a project that does involve, typically some IT resources as well.
Rich, you just talked about the cloud. You brought up the cloud quite a few times. And can you just, because this is always at the top of everyone's mind, is how secure is everything in the cloud?
When we first started down this path, that question came up a lot more than it does today. The cloud in many instances is as good, if not better, than, customers. And I gauge that by, the fact that people, we have very regulated industries. So I mentioned the home health care. So there's all kinds of HIPAA compliance. We have tons of financial organizations and banks and credit unions that have all the regulations that they're concerned about. We have PCI and HIPAA, and we have SOC, compliance. So, I think what, has happened over time is that the cloud providers have gone through such great lengths to assert and provide those assurances and provide third-party audits and SOC compliance and PCI compliance that, the reliance of the customer on sort of these industry regulations has made it easier to sign things. You want to sign a BAA, you want PCI compliance. So, those obstacles really have kind of dwindled away for our customers. 5 years ago it was a different story. Banks weren't jumping to the cloud; they were the last ones to go to the cloud. But now, the banks and heavily regulated customers really have the assurances, that their data and their customers' data is going to be, remain secure.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. And we're just about at the top of the hour. We had a lot of really good questions come in. And to contact Rich, his information is on the screen right in front of you, the phone number and his email address. I know he's more than happy to hear from you. And as a reminder, the recording and a copy of the slides will be available in about 24 hours. We will forward that information on to you. So at this point, I would like to thank Rich and everybody at Evolve IP for bringing this demo to the Serum Exchange audience. And as always, we do appreciate when you spend your hour with us on our Serum Exchange events. At this point, we will be closing this webcast. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.